Every town has its legends. Whispers pass between generations like heirlooms. Some towns warn you about ghost lights in the woods. Others have stories about bridges that hum at night, or about a woman in white who wanders the back roads, searching for a ride she'll never take. Our town's legend was simpler, just 5 words. Don't say your full name after midnight. It wasn't written down anywhere. No campfire tale with a beginning, middle, or end. There was no official story behind it. It was more like background noise. Something you absorb the same way you learn to lock your doors or avoid the old quarry. A quiet superstition. A rule that felt like it had always existed. Some kids turned it into a game, daring each other to say their names after midnight, only to chicken out at the last second, laughing nervously, pretending they weren't scared. As a kid, you'd hear it from older siblings, whispered at sleepovers when the lights were low. The rule was everywhere, woven into bedtime stories, playground dares, and late-night warnings. I remember my grandmother's version the best. She'd say it softly when she tucked me in, her hand brushing my hair back from my face, eyes glassy with something I didn't understand at the time. "Never say your name after midnight, Caitlin," she'd whisper. "Not all things sleep when we do." Her breath always smelled faintly of chamomile tea. Her voice would drop like she was afraid something might overhear. Back then, I thought it was just part of being from a small town. Like knowing who baked the best pies at the fall festival, or which corner of Main Street flooded when it rained too hard. It was just one of those things you grew up with. A piece of folklore stitched into everyday life. Of course, when you're a teenager, you stop believing in that stuff. You roll your eyes at the warnings, laugh at the old traditions. We thought we were too modern, too clever for superstitions. We had Wi-Fi, TikTok, and Spotify playlists for every mood. Why would we be scared of an old saying? Looking back now, I realized something. The warnings weren't jokes. They weren't bedtime stories to keep kids in line. They were reminders. Clues left behind by people who had seen things. People who had survived just long enough to pass the message on. And I didn't listen. None of us did. I didn't believe in that stuff. By the time I was 17, superstitions were just leftover scraps from an older generation. Stories told by people who didn't grow up with phones glued to their palms or the constant hum of notifications in the background. We had other things to worry about, like shares, followers, going viral. Folklore, that was just content now. The internet was full of fear challenges. Each challenge was more ridiculous than the last. People dared each other to summon Bloody Mary in the mirror, knock on cursed trees in the woods, or sleep in haunted hotels. They all followed the same formula: film it, post it, pretend something creepy happens, get the clicks. So when the hashtag Say Your Name challenge started trending, it was like gasoline poured on an already burning fire. The premise was simple: record it, post it, tag your town. Wait for the algorithm to do the rest. Say your full name out loud after midnight. It spread like wildfire, especially in towns like ours, where the rule was already part of the culture. Most of the videos were fake, obviously. You could scroll for hours watching the same recycled clips over and over. A kid saying his name, then the lights flickering. A girl whispering her name, then cutting to a shot of her door creaking open. Glitchy edits, fake shadows, TikTok filters. Some of them even added cheap jump scares with sound effects, screams, static, sudden cuts to black. It was a trend. A joke, and I wanted in. Not because I believed in it, but because I wanted to prove how dumb it all was. That night, I decided to do it for real. No edits, no filters, no fake knocks or slamming doors. Just me, the camera, and the quiet. The house was still, the kind of stillness you only notice when you're up way too late. The hum of the fridge in the kitchen, The occasional creak of the floorboards settled. I waited until my parents went to bed. I checked the time on my phone. 12:08 a.m. Perfect. I set up my phone on my desk, propping it against a stack of books. Lights off, except for the glow of the screen lighting my face. Like stepping up to a stage or clicking post on something you weren't sure about. I could see myself in the camera, the bluish cast of the display making my skin look pale, almost ghostly. My heart was beating faster than I expected, not because I was scared. At least that's what I told myself. It was just adrenaline. I took a deep breath, leaned in close, and said it loud and clear. My name is Caitlin Marie Ellis. My real name. All three parts, first, middle, last. I said it like I was reading it off an official document, like it meant nothing. Then I sat back and waited. The room stayed the same. No knocks, no flickering lights, no shadow in the corner of the screen, just silence. It made it personal, local. I rolled my eyes, let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, and hit upload. Hashtag say your name challenge. Hashtag midnight dare. Hashtag small town legends. I tagged the video with every relevant hashtag and added our town name in the caption because that was part of the fun. I watched the comments roll in almost immediately. Wow, you're brave. Nothing happens, it's just a story. Fake challenge is fake. Okay, but what if it's real though? I laughed at that last one. I laughed at all of them, really? Because nothing happened. Nothing at all. At least not yet. At first, everything was normal. I stayed up, scrolling through the hashtag say your name challenge tag, watching other people do the same thing I just had. Some were funny, some were pathetic, most were obviously staged. One video showed a girl shrieking as her closet door creaked open, but you could see her friend's hand pulling the string if you looked closely. Another had fake scratches photoshopped onto a bedroom wall, complete with spooky sound effects layered over the footage. I laughed at the worst ones, shared a few to my group chat, and kept scrolling. It was all harmless, just content, just noise. Outside my window, the world was still dark. That weird, heavy kind of dark that only happens between midnight and dawn when the neighborhood feels abandoned. No cars driving by, no porch lights turning off or on, just empty streets and distant shadows. Inside, the house was silent except for the soft, mechanical scroll of my thumb against the screen. Up, down, up, down. Time got slippery, the kind of thing that happens when you're staring at your phone too long. The screen reflected in my eyes, little flashes of blue and white, the faint sound of TikToks echoing in my earbuds. I wasn't even tired anymore. Just zoned out, brain locked into that late night doom scroll. And then, exactly 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a regular notification buzz. This one was sharp, shorter, different. I looked down, a DM notification. Weird. I hadn't gotten one of those all night. I opened my inbox and felt a cold prickle run down the back of my neck. It was from a blank account. No username, no profile picture. My stomach tightened the way it does when you miss a step going down the stairs. Like something in the room had shifted and you couldn't explain why. Maybe it was a prank account. Some random person trolling everyone doing the challenge. Just a gray circle where the avatar should be and a single word message. Noticed. That was it. One word, plain, uneventful. But my hands went cold anyway. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. That had to be it. I forced myself to type back, "Who is this?" I hit send, waited. A few seconds later, the typing dots appeared, 3 little dots blinking in the corner of the screen. Typing, 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 but no reply came. Just dots, blinking, blinking, blinking. It went on for way too long. I watched, hypnotized by the motion, my breath shallow, heart tapping a little faster than before. I told myself it was probably a glitch. Maybe their app froze, maybe they closed the chat before finishing their message. Except the dots kept going, relentless, endless. Like something was typing but didn't know how to stop. And then my phone started to ring. A sharp, jarring sound that shattered the stillness. I nearly dropped it. Incoming call, unknown number, no caller ID, just the words. Private caller. The screen pulsed with the incoming call icon, and for a second I hesitated. I thought about letting it ring out, but my thumb moved before I could stop it, and I answered. It wasn't just a phone call, it was a FaceTime call. From the same blank account. My screen lit up, front camera ready, reflecting my pale, confused face back at me. In the little preview window, I could see myself, eyes wide, lips parted slightly, like I'd just forgotten how to breathe. The gray circle where the contact photo should be pulled softly on the screen, like it had a heartbeat of its own. No name, no username. Just that empty, anonymous symbol and the word, FaceTime incoming. My finger hovered over the screen, trembling. I wasn't about to answer. My pulse thudded in my ears, drowning out everything else. For a moment, the phone was the only thing that existed. The glowing rectangle in my hands, vibrating softly, asking me to pick up. I let it ring. I watched it vibrate in my palm, eyes locked on the display, muscles frozen. My throat was dry, but I didn't dare clear it. I didn't blink, I just waited. The call lasted exactly 1 minute before ending on its own. I exhaled slowly, like someone letting air out of a tire. My heart was hammering, but I told myself it was fine. It was probably just a troll. Someone tech-savvy, spoofing numbers, hacking the FaceTime system to scare people. That kind of stuff happened all the time, right? My phone vibrated again. A new message. I stared at the notification, my stomach clenching. I didn't want to open it, but my thumb moved anyway, like it was acting on its own. The message wasn't text, it was a photo. When I tapped it, the image filled my screen and my heart almost stopped. It was a picture of my bedroom door. Taken from the hallway, the angle was perfect, too perfect. As if someone was standing just outside, camera held chest high, peeking in. The wood grain of the door, the little chip in the white paint near the bottom where my dog used to scratch when she wanted to come in. My doorknob slightly crooked because Dad had installed it wrong 2 summers ago. It was unmistakably my door, my house. Maybe it was an old photo from before, somehow stolen from my camera roll. And it wasn't an old photo. I checked the timestamp in the corner, my eyes darting down like they might find a way out of this. 3:19 a.m. I looked at the time on my phone. 3:19 a.m. The photo had been taken just now, proof that someone or something was standing just outside my room. A fresh coldness spread over my skin. My scalp prickled, my fingers going clammy against the glass. I strained my ears, listening. The house was still, and I hadn't heard a thing. Not a single sound. No footsteps, no breathing, no creak of floorboards outside my room. I wanted to believe it was a prank, someone who had found a way to fake the image or manipulate metadata. Except there was one problem. I'd never taken that photo before. I'd never stood in the hallway and aimed my phone at my own door like that. I would remember. I should remember. But there it was, proof on my screen. I checked the hallway camera on our home security app. It said, "No activity detected." But my eyes stayed locked on the picture, on my door, on the empty space beneath it, and for the first time in my life, I realized what real fear felt like. I checked the lock. My hand reached out automatically, fingers brushing the cool metal of the knob, flicking the latch just to be sure. Still locked. But somehow that didn't make me feel safer. The door was just a thin barrier between me and whatever was on the other side. And part of me, the part that still wanted to believe in logic and normal explanations, told myself that locks mattered. That if the latch was secure, then nothing could get in, except something already had. I heard it then. At first, I thought it was the sound of my own breathing, the shallow, ragged inhales that made my chest tighten. I held my breath for a second just to check, and that's when I realized it wasn't me. It wasn't coming from my phone either, not from the speakers or the microphone. It was coming from inside the room. More specifically, from the closet. A soft rasping inhale, like lungs pulling in air through a throat that was almost too narrow, followed by a long, slow exhale, wet, deliberate. It came again, and out. I froze. My hand clenched around my phone so tightly my knuckles went white, the edges of the case biting into my palm. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even swallow. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't the kind of breathing that demanded attention. It was the kind that waited in the background. The kind you might not notice unless you were very, very still. The kind that let you know you weren't alone. My eyes slid toward the closet. The door was half open. It had been like that all night, ever since I tossed my hoodie in there before setting up my phone. It wasn't unusual. I left it open like that all the time. But now, the crack in the door felt different, deeper somehow, darker, like it led somewhere farther away than just my closet. The breathing continued, in, out. The rhythm was wrong. It didn't sound like a person trying to hide. There was no panicked gasping, no quick breaths. It sounded patient, slow, measured, like whatever was inside had all the time in the world. I wanted to tell myself it was nothing, that it was the air vent, the wind, the house settling. But no vent makes that sound, no house breathes. I swallowed hard, throat clicking in the silence. Every instinct screamed at me to get out, to run, to throw open the door, sprint down the hall, wake my parents, call someone, anyone. But my legs wouldn't move. My body felt pinned to the floor, like gravity was heavier in this room than anywhere else. And deep in my mind, behind the panic, a single thought looped over and over. It noticed me. It knows my name. And now it is here, in my closet, waiting. At 3:31 a.m., my phone vibrated again. Another message. I didn't want to look at it, but my eyes drifted to the screen anyway, like gravity was pulling them there. Hands shaking, I flipped the phone over and read the words glowing in the dark. Don't open the closet. That was it. 5 simple words. I stared at the screen, my throat tightening. My vision blurred a little, hot tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. Crying wouldn't help. It would make noise. And right now, noise felt dangerous. My brain tried to come up with excuses. It had to be a prank. A hacker, maybe. Someone who'd figured out how to spoof my location, hijack my camera feed, send real-time photos. That happened, right? It had to be tech. That was easier to believe than the alternative. But then, the breathing continued. Soft, persistent, in and out. I clenched my jaw, trying not to make a sound. The phone vibrated again and again. I told myself not to look. I told myself to put the phone down, to throw it across the room if I had to. But at 3:42 a.m., I looked anyway. A new message. It knows your name now. My lips parted, a sharp breath escaping before I could stop it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call for help. But what if that made it worse? What if calling my parents just invited it in further? I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, phone trembling in my grip. I could still hear the breathing. Still coming from the closet, still slow, like something savoring the moment. Like it was waiting for me to break first. My phone buzzed again. I checked the time, 3:54 a.m., Another message lit up the screen. Names or invitations. I felt my stomach twist. Those words echoed in my mind over and over until they barely sounded like words anymore. Names or invitations. I remembered my grandmother's voice, soft, careful. Never say your name after midnight, Caitlin. Not all things sleep when we do. I thought it was just superstition, a leftover bedtime warning from another generation. But now I understood. Saying your name wasn't just a dare. It was a signal, an invitation, and I had said mine out loud. I had said it clearly, directly, to the camera, to the dark, and something had answered. At some point, I stopped checking the phone. The screen kept lighting up beside me, messages stacking one after another, buzzing relentlessly. I couldn't bear to look anymore. I curled up in bed, drawing my knees to my chest, the phone pressed silently to my side, eyes locked on the closet door. Still half open, still breathing, still waiting. I didn't dare close my eyes. I didn't dare move. Because now I knew, once you invite something in, it doesn't leave. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the closet door. Minutes, hours, time lost its meaning. I stayed frozen in my bed, knees pulled to my chest, phone still clutched in one hand like a lifeline, even though the screen had gone dark. The battery was dying, but I didn't dare move to plug it in. The air felt heavier now, thicker, like the room was smaller than it had been before. I kept my eyes locked on the closet, afraid to blink, afraid to breathe. At some point, the breathing got closer. It shifted, subtle at first, a soft rustling sound, then a whisper of movement behind the closet door, and then the worst sound of all, the faintest creak of floorboards. Something inside shifted its weight. The boards under my closet weren't supposed to creak unless someone stepped directly on them, but they did now, just once. A low, groaning sound, like the house itself was warning me. I held my breath so hard my chest burned. I pressed my back against the headboard, muscles locked in place, sweat cooling against my skin. The messages had stopped coming. No more buzzing. No more warnings. But something else had started, scraping, a soft, wet sound, like fingernails or something like fingernails, dragging slowly along the inside of the door, not scratching in frustration, not clawing to get out. It was slower than that, deliberate, like it wanted me to hear it, like it was letting me know exactly where it was. I bit my tongue hard enough that I tasted blood. I wanted to scream. Every nerve in my body told me to scream, to yell for help, to do something, but no sound came out. I couldn't risk it. Because somehow, deep down, I knew if I spoke again, it would hear me, and worse. If I said my name a second time, if I accidentally whispered it, or even thought it too clearly, it would come all the way out. Whatever was in the closet wasn't finished yet. It was still waiting, still listening, and now it was just inches away. At some point, hours after the last message, maybe longer, the darkness in my room began to soften. A thin line of gray light crept in through the edges of the blinds. The faint suggestion of morning. For most people, dawn means safety. Sunlight chases away the monsters. Morning resets everything. But not this time. Because the breathing didn't stop all at once. It faded, piece by piece, slowing down, stretching out, until finally there was just silence, not a comforting silence, not relief. It was the kind of silence that feels hollow, like something has decided to be still, but not to leave. The closet door stayed half open, exactly where it had been all night. Nothing moved behind it now, no scraping, no breathing, but the space between the door and the frame still felt wrong. Like the gap led to somewhere else now, a place deeper than just a closet, I didn't dare close it. I stayed in bed for another hour, barely blinking, the cold light of morning slowly overtaking the room. It wasn't the warm, golden sunrise you see in movies. It was pale, washed out, gray. A kind of light that made everything look sick. Eventually, I checked my phone. Battery at 6%. No new messages. I scrolled back through the old ones, but something was different. The account was gone. Deleted. No profile. No history. No trace. The messages I'd received, they were still there, but now they all said the same thing at the top of the screen. User not found. Like whoever or whatever had sent them had erased itself. Or been erased. Downstairs, I heard my parents waking up. The soft clink of mugs. The low hum of the coffee maker. The TV clicking on in the living room. Morning sounds. Normal life resuming as if the night had never happened. I wanted to run downstairs and tell them everything. But the words stayed trapped in my throat because what could I say? That I broke the rule? That I said my name after midnight and now something was here? They'd never believe me. They'd tell me I'd had a nightmare. Too much screen time. Too much caffeine. I forced myself out of bed, legs stiff, knees weak, made it to the bathroom, turned on the sink, splashed cold water on my face, trying to snap myself back to normal, trying to pretend. But when I looked up, when my eyes met my own reflection, I knew I wasn't out of it yet. Because for just a second, I saw it. Something moved behind me. A shape. A flicker of shadow in the mirror. Not in the room, in the reflection. When I turned around, the bathroom was empty, but my heart told me the truth. The rule wasn't about the night. It wasn't about midnight. It was about invitation. And once you invite something in, sunrise doesn't make it leave. At some point, hours after the last message, maybe longer, the darkness in my room began to soften. A thin line of gray light crept in through the edges of the blinds. The faint suggestion of morning. For most people, dawn means safety. Sunlight chases away the monsters. Morning resets everything. But not this time. Because the breathing didn't stop all at once. It faded, piece by piece, slowing down, stretching out. Until finally, there was just silence. Not a comforting silence. Not relief. It was the kind of silence that feels hollow. Like something has decided to be still, but not to leave. The closet door stayed half open. Exactly where it had been all night. Nothing moved behind it now. No scraping. No breathing. But the space between the door and the frame still felt wrong. Like the gap led to somewhere else now. A place deeper than just a closet. I didn't dare close it. I stayed in bed for another hour, barely blinking, the cold light of morning slowly overtaking the room. It wasn't the warm, golden sunrise you see in movies. It was pale, washed out, gray. A kind of light that made everything look sick. Eventually, I checked my phone. Battery at 6%. No new messages. I scrolled back through the old ones, but something was different. The account was gone. Deleted. No profile. No history. No trace. The messages I'd received, they were still there, but now they all said the same thing at the top of the screen. User not found. Like whoever or whatever had sent them had erased itself. Or been erased. Downstairs, I heard my parents waking up. The soft clink of mugs. The low hum of the coffee maker. The TV clicking on in the living room. Morning sounds. Normal life resuming as if the night had never happened. I wanted to run downstairs and tell them everything. But the words stayed trapped in my throat because what could I say? That I broke the rule? That I said my name after midnight and now something was here? They'd never believe me. They'd tell me I'd had a nightmare. Too much screen time. Too much caffeine. I forced myself out of bed, legs stiff, knees weak, made it to the bathroom, turned on the sink, splash cold water on my face, trying to snap myself back to normal, trying to pretend. But when I looked up, when my eyes met my own reflection, I knew I wasn't out of it yet. Because for just a second, I saw it. Something moved behind me. A shape. A flicker of shadow in the mirror. Not in the room, in the reflection. When I turned around, the bathroom was empty, but my heart told me the truth. The rule wasn't about the night. It wasn't about midnight. It was about invitation. And once you invite something in, sunrise doesn't make it leave. This is the scariest thing I've ever seen. I was home alone one night and I heard a knock at the door. I ignored it because I knew it was just my neighbor trying to get in again. I was trapped inside my house with this guy who was trying to break in. But when I turned around, he was standing right behind me. He had a big smile on his face and he said, "You can't hide from me forever." I don't know what he wanted, but I was terrified. But then I heard scratching at the window and I started to get really scared. I looked out the window and I saw a man. He was tall and skinny with long, sharp nails. And he was trying to dig his way into my house by digging at the window with his nails. I started screaming for help, but no one could hear me. He finally got in through the window and I ran to hide in the closet. And that's when I realized it's not a dream. It's happening. And this man who has been trying to break into my house is now in my closet with me.